Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today this is the last video of our tutorial. This video is basically about how do you deploy a full stack data science application that you have built on Flask, say on any web framework. You have also Dockerized it by doing Docker deployment. So how do you actually deploy it on a cloud provider, say in Microsoft Azure? So firstly, I'm going to introduce you to Microsoft Azure platform. What is it? What are the different features of Microsoft Azure, and how easy it is to actually get your full stack data science project to production level? So basically, you all must have heard about cloud computing. What is cloud computing and the types of cloud computing? So cloud computing, basically, to give you a small introduction on that, it is of three types, which is in you have cloud computing services. So the cloud service providers are of three types, which are infrastructure as a service, which is IaaS. And next you have software as a service, which is SaaS, and next you have platform as a service, which is PaaS. So these three are the different types of cloud computing service providers. So when we talk about Microsoft Azure, especially when you're trying to deploy your data science project to production level, say you want to make use of something called as a Azure App Service. So Azure App Service is a platform as a service, and Microsoft Azure is also platform as a service. Similarly, AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. You must have heard of AWS. It's very prominent, and it's also famous cloud provider, right? You can actually deploy your machine learning apps, and not only machine learning but also your web applications onto AWS, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud Platform, which is GCP. So AWS is an infrastructure as a service IaaS platform. So when we talk about specifically about Microsoft Azure, Azure's app service is something which I'm going to be using. So when you want to actually deploy your Flask application after Dockerizing it, you need some feature so that in Microsoft Azure, you can make use of Azure App Service, which enables you to deploy web applications, including ML-based web applications, with ease. So, what are the programming languages you think it's supported? We are actually using Python because our backend is all in Python programming language, but it also supports various other frameworks such as Python, .NET as well, and Node.js. Azure App Service, it provides built-in scalability, automatic operating system patching, and high availability. So these are some of the features, and there are different tiers. Okay, so when you are actually being a student, you also have the student subscription plan of Microsoft Azure. So you can also avail that free access. So you can make use of the free tier. So there are different tiers you can use in Microsoft Azure. You have the free tier or the basic tier, which starts with the price, and they all pay as you go model. So similarly, AWS also, it has pay as you go. That is, whatever services you are using, for that only you get to pay. And similarly, Azure App Service is considered an excellent platform as a service, which I was talking about. It is coming under the PASS, which is platform as a service category. It offers an application platform for developers to build web, not only web but also mobile and API applications. So that is the benefit of actually deploying your data science projects on Microsoft Azure. So its offerings range from simple marketing and digital presence applications to scalable e-commerce solutions. So even when you want to, or for large scale projects at industry level, they also make use of Microsoft Azure. Of course, you can make use of GCP and AWS as well, but me personally, I feel Microsoft Azure is the most easiest one for me, and I feel that it is also having various features. So you can also look into the other cloud providers. The main agenda of the tutorial is for you to get to equip you with the full stack data science skills, and to introduce you to the concepts of model deployment, the terminologies that you should be aware of. So this cloud provider, it's totally up depending upon your use case, your project, the complexity of your project, the scalability, and your personal preference. So you can also go with Heroku for hosting and other platforms like Linode as well. Initially, remember, all these platforms will give you free credit to use. So once you exhaust that credit, you have to you can upgrade your plan as well. So Azure. So basically, this was all about Azure App Service. So I've also told you, for hyperscale customizable applications, this can actually come handy. Azure ML, which is Azure Machine Learning, is a cloud-based service which I'd like to introduce you to about, because when you actually build Azure, I was talking about starting as in we have actually built a Flask application, then Dockerized it, and then we'll be deploying it on Microsoft Azure, which will be a public as a public Azure container instance. But then rather than starting from the scratch, you can actually automate this entire ML workflow by using Auto ML, which I was talking about. So there are so many services which Microsoft Azure does provide, even in the student subscription plan or even the free version. There are some of the services that you can avail, like we have cognitive services which offers, you can have a look into that. So basically this is the Microsoft Learn documentation. So you can go through that in order to, whenever you want any guidance related to how do you actually deploy or what are the steps. So that's the official documentation of Microsoft Azure. So cognitive service is something which you can also look into, because it offers, especially if you're interested in machine learning applications like be it text analytics, natural language processing, speech to text chatbots, or even computer vision, image processing. So all these are also included in the cognitive services and provided by MS Azure. So MS Azure ML is a cloud-based service that enables developers and data scientists to build, deploy, and manage machine learning models. So this is very important key term. As I've told you in full stack data science, you have to build, then you have to deploy, and then manage as well. It makes all these things really very easy and fast. It provides a complete workflow for ML, including data preparation. As I told you, it automates the entire ML workflow, which is right from data preparation, model training, evaluation, selection, and then deployment. So that was all about it. And Azure ML supports a variety of ML frameworks and languages like Python, R, and PyTorch. Now, what is this app service we'll be looking into? So, as if you want to actually deploy your a model which you have built, so or your Docker container also. By the way, you do not actually have to Dockerize it. Even if you have a Flask application, if you want to actually, you can also send your code, push it to GitHub, and then using GitHub Actions, you can actually deploy the code on Microsoft Azure directly. So some of you might have the doubt that do we actually have to Dockerize it? So Dockerizing is just making it very easy. As I've told you, the benefits of Docker, it helps in automatic, faster deployment, shipping of applications, and solves the major problem which most of the developers have, especially when you're working in teams, which is, when you're not able to actually configure various dependencies. And Python being such a language where you have to actually keep configuring various dependencies, versions. This project which I've took SMS spam classification using machine learning, that is a very a common use case, I would say, and not many dependencies were there. Like I've just used Flask, requests, pandas, numpy, all those modules. But what if their dependencies increase and they're very heavy libraries, like say transformers, you're making use of Hugging Face or something like that. So especially it's very key to understand if you're using heavy frameworks like TensorFlow or Keras, or the libraries of the packages. So over there the versions also matter. So in order to solve all those conflicts, dependencies, it's very important to actually have all the requirements in one place. That's why I was insisting in the previous videos to have a requirements.txt file. So that's how about it, that I like to first tell that you can containerize your application for Docker deployment, and then send it over for actually deploying it or hosting it somewhere. So Azure App Service ways to deploy application. Now there are, as I told you, there are many ways to actually deploy your application. One is through Docker, which I have already done, and I'll also be demonstrating. So you can deploy your code firstly. Container images, you can do, when I say container images, it is the Docker image only. You can do that, or via Azure DevOps. So this is again, some feature you could actually explore about Azure DevOps. Then you can do it with GitHub Actions by pushing your entire project repositories to GitHub, and then deploying it using GitHub Actions. Now, what is GitHub Actions? GitHub Actions is a CI/CD tool by GitHub. So CI/CD stands for continuous integration and continuous deployment. So basically that is again a CI/CD tool, which comes under DevOps. So you can make use of GitHub Actions and then deploy it. Also, you must have heard of, like, after you have pushed your web application, your project folders to GitHub, you can also deploy it on or host it your project or your website on GitHub pages. You might have seen resumes on GitHub pages and so on, like the ones which end with github.io. So that is again hosted on GitHub pages. So similar to that, GitHub Actions is a feature which is provided by GitHub, and you can make use of it, and then directly from using GitHub Actions, you can deploy your code, the repositories, and the project folders to Azure App Services. So that is one way. One way is through container image, which is nothing but Docker images. Then next is through CLI, which is command line interface. So for that, you can make use of Azure CLI, or other automation providers are also available, which is Circle CLI and Circle CI, or Travis CI. So these two are again automation providers. I've just enlisted over here so that you'll be aware of what all other deployment options available for you. So I feel containerization has many benefits. So that is one, and it's always good to learn such tools like which actually help you to containerize your applications, also making it much easier for shipping and then directly deploying your application, the isolated container. So basically this was all about Microsoft Azure, which I've explained to you. Now, going back to my this my code, which is VS Code environment, this over here on my left side. So I would just like to tell you, before jumping directly to the Microsoft platform, the Azure platform, inside your the Visual Studio Code itself, you will see that there are, if you have different extensions, this is the Docker extension. So whatever Docker, if there is any container image which is running, it is going to be shown over here. And you can also you also see registries over here. So when I was talking about registries are some places where you're publicly hosting. So if you have Docker Hub is a place for wherever you are actually having all your repository, pushed your Docker containers to Docker Hub. So this is the place, registry for Docker. Then you have Azure. Since I'm using Azure for student subscription, so this is a free version. You can also upgrade it later on. So once it expires, you can upgrade it, and pay as you go will apply. So you can make use of Azure over here. So there is one way, I've already told you, like through code, you can actually deploy your application, and even you can head over to the site, or using Azure CLI as well. You can log in, and then using the command line interface, command prompt, you can actually deploy your application on the webs as a Azure App Service. So what is this over here on the left side I would like to show you is that if you go and click on Azure over here, the Azure extension, you will see resources over here. So what I'll be showing in the site, and the snippets which are nothing but from the documentation of the site, will actually help you understand there's another way you can do. So if you go over here and head over, you can go to resources. You'll see a plus button over here. So resources are basically for you to create resource. Now, if you just click on this plus button, this is what will open on the top. You will see create app service web app. This is something which we would like to, understand. So there are different features. So create app service web app. You want to actually, this is nothing but the Azure App Service I was talking about. So you want to actually deploy your ML application or your ML project container as a web app itself, right? So you can also go and click on host your APIs and full stack apps. There's another create resource group, which is nothing but the logical grouping of your resources. So if I click on create as your web app, then yes, it'll ask me to enter a globally unique name for the new web app, enter to confirm. So in this way also, there are 3 steps, just 3 steps. Remember, if you just go over here, click on the plus button, create new app, you give the name, you follow the next processes, and you carry on. Since I'm not going to do it right now because I've already created the app, this is one of the ways you can actually look into. So this is about it. And then you have app services. So what are those app services I was talking about? You have different features. Firstly, in Azure, you must be aware of not only app services, but there are other various tools as well. So if you're interested in making a cloud computing project, an end-to-end cloud computing project, which also is related to ML, and you're actually utilizing all the features of Microsoft Azure, then you have to also be aware of the databases, because without database, I would say that you would not be able to actually explore or build a cloud computing end-to-end project. So in Azure, you have databases, and the database for Azure, you have Azure Cosmos DB. So this is something you can look into. So as app services, as I've just hovered over it, these are what you can see. These are some of the web apps I've already hosted on the Microsoft Azure platform. So spam classify ML app is one which I was doing it, and this is the one which is pertaining to our use case. So spam classify ML app, application settings, you can have a look over here, databases, deployments. If you go to deployments, if I just click on deployments right now, you see an option connect to a GitHub repository. So this is what I would like to show you. You can actually connect it to a GitHub repository as well, and via GitHub repository you can actually deploy your entire code. So you can make use of GitHub, connect it to GitHub, and after connecting to a GitHub repository, you can even deploy it using GitHub Actions itself. So that is one way you can do. Otherwise, without connecting to your GitHub repository, if you don't want to actually push your or you don't want to just, even though you have pushed it to your GitHub, you don't want to actually connect to GitHub repository and then deploy. What I did, which is through the container, Docker container image. That is again one more thing you can do. Then you have files over here. These are some of the features I would like to introduce you. So you have files here, you have logs. What is logs? So logs is basically the stream of all the errors or something which actually when you're actually running or deploying the application, what is going in the background. So if you want to see any error which occurs, exceptions, warnings, everything will be analyzed in the logs. So everything will be basically all the insights or the analytics you would be getting in the logs. So these are read only, by the way, you cannot edit logs. And then you have connect to log stream. If you connect to log stream, you will see the logs, the stream of logs which actually occur when you're deploying or executing the application. Then connect to log stream. So these are the different ways you can connect. Web SSH, which is secure shell, or through Kudu, and then you have web jobs and deployment slots as well. So deployment slots is nothing but scale up to a production plan to enable slots. So if you are a free plan, you can actually upgrade your plan, or you can scale up and scale down your app service as well. So that was all about some of the features in app services. The Azure Cosmos DB is the database I was talking about in Azure. So if you just see, since I did not add any database or something, you will not be able to see over here, but this is a database which is provided. Then you have you can make use of that as well, the free tier. Then container apps. So what is this container apps all about? You can have a look in the official site as well. Then you have function app, logic app, then PostgreSQL servers, which are flexible and standard. Both the versions are there. PostgreSQL, right? PostgreSQL, it's a relational database management system. So I've talked about, MongoDB. If you heard, I've talked in my previous video, it was NoSQL or a non-relational database. So PostgreSQL, like, you've heard of MySQL, they all are relying on SQL. They operate on SQL, so they are relational in nature or relational database systems. Then you can also deploy to Spring apps, static web apps, storage accounts, and virtual machines. So all these are actually provided by Microsoft Azure platform. You can have a look into that. Since I'm going to talk about deployment, and our main focus is on deploying it and getting that link live or as a public instance, so that is what I've made use of in the app services. So that was all about it. So if you want me to just demonstrate over here to create a web app, so let me just give any name like ABC, or let me give it in demo, although I have already created. So hostname demo already exists. So you have to just create a name. This just is just for your demonstration. Demo app already exists, so it's very hard to actually do it over here in this particular environment. So I would recommend to go to the head over to the official site, and over there itself you'll be able to do it. So if you go over here and you see that view container logs, so over here you will be able to find what I'm talking about. So this is a quick start for you to deploy a container instance in Azure using the Azure portal. So over here you can do one thing. So make use of in order to use serverless Docker containers or to run them, you can use Azure container instances in Azure with simplicity and speed. So that is one way I was talking about. So what I followed over here is, after signing into your Azure account, which is the Azure portal, this is the portal, and you can just sign in over there. After signing, you get something like this, which is create a container instance. Since I've already deployed it on my site, so that's why I'm not showing the process, but these are just the simple processes that you understand, and you can actually deploy it on Microsoft Azure. So this is basically, you click on the create a resource. I've just shown you on a VS Code, in the VS Code as well. You can just go over here to resources and you click on plus. The same thing is going to be over here as well. In fact, in a more easier fashion, you can do it in the site on the portal. So if you go to create a resource and click on this plus button over here, then down you will see that they are select containers and container instances. You will see all these categories. In categories, you see AI plus ML, analytics, containers, databases, compute. You can explore all of them. And then over here, click on containers, because yours is not a database. You have a Docker container already with you. So you click on containers, and over here you see Kubernetes, web app for containers, container instances, and everything. So you click on container instances over here. Once you click on container instances, or you can directly just type Docker as well, even that works. Even in the search over here, after create a resource, you can type here deploy a Docker container, and you will see here there is a tutorial, deploy container application to container instance. That is using for Docker as well. So after you click on container instances, on the basics page, you see you choose a subscription. So whatever subscription you want to go ahead with, you proceed with that. For the resource group, container name, image source, and container image. So all these are required. You need a container name. As I told you, for Docker, you have container name. You also have an image source and a container image, right? You have the Docker container image as well. So firstly, you have to create a source. So create new, and then you click on my resource group. You get there's dialog over here, something like this. This is the exact dialog which you will get. Then over here, just container name, you can give anything. Image source over here, just this is a sample, by the way. Container image, the image source, you can have a look over here how it is. But this is the dialog you will get. Click on basics over here. After you click on basics, you go to subscription. Subscription can be any subscription. Now you can, if you even if you leave resource group, you do not give any name to it. Automatically by default, a name will be assigned, so you do not have to worry. Otherwise, you can just click on the combo box over here, and then you will be able to give any name to your resource group. Following the next, which is container details, you give a name to your container. Now you give the name to your container over here. You can give any name, by the way. So let's say I've just given as spam classifier ML app. Same thing, so you can give the name over here. Region, you can now this is again geography, by the way, if you just understand about the features of Azure and how it's working. Now the region, whatever you feel that the feature is available, I see the services are available in that zone, you can go to that. So over here they've used East US. You can also make use of Central US, or wherever you are residing, you can make use of that region. But make sure that service should be available, and your app should be able to be accessible in that region. Then availability issues are none over here. Image source is, these are the quick start images. If you want the image source to be quick start, otherwise Azure container registry or other registry. Image is over here. If you click on quick start, you will see the default image over here. Review plus create will actually create the web app for you. The deployment will be completed. If you go click over here to next networking, you will see all the details you have to be filling about regarding ports, communication, and so on. So if you click on networking page, specify a DNS name label for your container. Now this is all about it. So you see you can choose one of these options for the DNS name label scope reuse, which is tenant, subscription, resource group, no reuse, and any reuse. So for this example case, they have made use of tenant over here. So if you see, they clicked on tenant. Otherwise, you can also make use of no reuse or so on. So they have used tenant over here, and the networking type is public. Now you can also use this particular is basically for hosting or for deploying as a public container instance. But if you want to deploy it as a private container instance, then you have to click on private and go ahead with the steps. So since we actually want it to be public, our web app to be live in public, so you just go with public over here for our use case as well. Then ports over here, you can specify the ports you want to go ahead with, review plus create, and select create to submit your container deployment request. Now once that create is done, you will see the validation is passed, and you see the overview of your web app. Now in this overview, you see the subscription you're using, all the basics of everything you have approved and accepted. Then you see here what the region, the resource group, you also see the OS type you're using, the networking. So whether what port is available, the networking type, whether it's public, private, or other. And then you can also go to move to previous, or you can also go to next. Since there's no next, you click on create. That is our final stage, and after clicking on create, this is exactly what you get. You just see the status as running if the deployment is successful. If the deployment is pending or it is failed, you will get a notification saying failed deployment. If the deployment is running, if it's successful, you get the status saying running, and you go to overview. After you go to overview, you will see all the statistics over here. You see the CPU, the memory being in used, and so on. You can also hover over, you can see start over here, restart, stop, delete. So you can, if you want to delete your, deployed web app, you can just simply go on delete. Or if you want to, the container instance, if you want to restart and stop, you can do this. You can just click on those buttons. Now, after this is done, once the status is running, navigate to the containers FQDN in your browser. So you just go to this. Basically the URL, the domain. Now this domain can be the domain of your application which is running. You just head over to that site, and you will see that the status is running, and this is your application live. So by configuring just a few settings, you've deployed a publicly accessible application in Azure container instances. So now one way you were thinking is container instances, right? And if you want to also view the container logs, which I was talking about, to understand any troubleshooting issues or to debug the code, you can also go and head over to settings, containers, and then logs over here. You will get the log stream of all the errors, issues which occur or the insights when your app is actually running. or during the deployment. Now, if you want to clean up the resources, say you are done with the container, you can select overview for the container instance and then select delete. Suppose you don't want any more the container, you can just go and head over to delete over here. That will delete the entire container and all its associated resources for you. Now select yes when the confirmation dialog appears, and then all the container instances in the container group, whatever you have specified, will get deleted. Now, this was all about creating an Azure container instance from a public Microsoft image. But since we have used quick starts, quick starts over there, and then you see the URL for Microsoft. But if you want to actually build a container image and deploy it to private Azure container registry, you can also go and do the same process using private. So if you might be thinking that after creating a resource, you have to head over to, I told you have to go to app services over here. Otherwise, you can also go to containers and container instances. One way which you can also do is, instead of just going to container instances, you can directly head over to app service. And in app service, you will get directly this entire process, which is this dialog box will appear. And over here, instead of create container instance, it will show as create web app. So if create a web app is there, the same process, which is basics, networking, advanced. But right when you're going to basics, you go and click on next. So when you go and click on next, you will see the option of Docker deployment. So when you want your Docker, if you have a container, it's going to ask you, instead of like directly asking you the container name, it's just a web app, and the app service which you're using can be either a Docker container, it can be a code, or even you might be even deploying it via GitHub Actions. So it totally depends, or Azure CLI as well. So there will be 4 options which will be given to you: Azure CLI, GitHub Actions, code, or you can also deploy as a Docker container. So when you click on Docker container or Docker container image, then you will be getting this particular container name being asked, and then the region to be provided, availability zones, and so on. You also remember that when you are providing the name of, although over here is just directly container instance, but when you are actually and also, since we have used quick start images, you don't have to use quick start images, because this is just quick start is nothing but the default one, the web app which you have just seen over here. That is not regarding what we want, right? You want to actually deploy your own web app, right? Your own web app as on Microsoft Azure. So you don't go with quick start images, rather click on other registry, or if you're going with Docker container, you have to ensure that you give your container name. So when I say container name, you have to provide your Docker Hub username. So that is very important. Docker Hub username is something which I recommend. So because the image will be pulled from Docker Hub itself. So whatever image you are going to be providing, the Docker Hub username followed by a slash, then the container image name, a colon, and then the tag name. So these are something goes without saying. I've told you in Docker, whenever you're actually making a Docker image, these are the components of that. So you clearly specify that, and make sure you specify a Docker Hub name. The Docker Hub name is because it will authenticate, login, and then in the background, when you see the logs as well, you will see that it is connecting, since you're deploying it, linking to your Docker registry, Docker Hub, which is a registry. You will see that it is also going to pull the respective image from your Docker Hub. That is very important. That is why you have to give your Docker Hub name, the username, along with the Docker Hub container image name. So after that, you can, it's entirely the same process which I've explained here. You can review and create, or you can also go to next, networking, provide the necessary details, and whichever are given as optional, you can leave them blank. The default settings will be applied to you. Otherwise, if you have knowledge and you think that you want to actually specify or configure the specifications, you can then give any name. Suppose over here you see there is a star over here. So wherever there is an asterisk or a star, it means that you have to provide your you have to provide something over there, because that's compulsory, that's mandatory to be filled. Otherwise, if there is nothing, there is an optional, you can leave it blank as well. So finally, you will see everything is validated, and once everything is validated, it might take some time to actually load your application and make it live. Also, there could be cases of downtime or something like that when your application is too big or it's not able to scale properly. But if anything is there, you can actually monitor in the log streams. So in the container log streams of your application. So over here, view container logs will actually show you that. So once this is done, you can actually go. So the name I had given was spam classify ML app. I have followed all these processes, and this is the the application. So if you see here, this is actually a public link. This is not running on my local host because it's not starting with 127.0.1, 0.0.1, or it's not on local host. It is a publicly hosted or a live Azure container instance, I would say, Azure service. So if you see here, I've given the name as spam classifier ML app, and it's ending with Azure websites.net. This by default I've made use of it, and this is the basically the URL or the domain of my application. Now my application is up and running, it is public, so if I can share it. By the way, one caveat to note is that it depends on you to monitor. So if you want to actually stop the stop this application yourself, you can head over here to your site and you can click on stop. It will stop it from the server side because you're the administrator. It's the roles are to you. Also, there's something called as IAM, which stands for access management, so identity and access management. So if you are working in a team and you're the administrator, you can monitor and you can assign or deny the roles and grant privileges to the team members. You can assign roles basically in order to for anyone to monitor, to anyone to configure and change. So that is all related to the access management and identity management. But if you're working on a personal project, so you can definitely do that. You can stop your container anytime. You stop your web app, which is the Azure App Service, anytime. And then once that is done, even if the client actually goes to the site, it will show a 403 error. As I've told you, it is forbidden, or it's some status HTTP status code which indicates that's an error from the server side, or this it has been closed, forbidden. Then this is exactly what we have seen. I've shown you in the previous videos, that is in Flask as well as a Docker deployment, as a Flask deployment, and this is on Microsoft Azure deployment. So I'm just running, or let's see what if it's actually working. It's actually the form is able to take or not. So if I just click here, hi there, click on predict, it says site can't be reached. Okay, so there is a caveat over here. So let me just restart. All right, so I'm stopping it. Fail to stop. Okay, I guess there was a network issue, and yeah, now I'm clicking on restart. Yes. So since now we have to also understand that since all these these applications are actually even if it's Microsoft Azure, will also work on online. Since these are online services, you need to be aware that you need to have a good connectivity of the internet. Right. So you see here the website is actually up and running. I had clicked, I have entered, the user has entered hi there, and it was not a spam. So you see, not a spam, it is a ham. If I go to back, and if it's again, our app is live, you can see this app running. Now, if I just go and give any message, like say, okay, this is also not a spam, right? It's a ham. So if I click on predict, you see not a spam, it's a ham. And if you provide any, a spam message over here from the data set, or any actually a spam message which you get an SMS message, and if you enter it over here and click on predict, you will see it's a spam. And as I've already told you, it's the same model which I've also showed you in the Flask also, which was giving us 98% accuracy. I've made use of naive-based multinomial model, multinomial naive-based machine learning model for machine learning development, and then finally deployed it as Flask, Dockerized it, and then hosted it live as app service, Azure App Service on Microsoft Azure. So let me copy and paste this. If you think that this, if I just close it over here, the app is running. By the way, if I just go and paste it over here, let's see if it's running. Yes. So now with this, we can understand that it is, it's not a local host. It is actually already, you can see, because it's ending with Azure websites.net. So it is live and it is public access. So it is publicly accessed. But whenever, since you are the administrator, you can close the site. Suppose I close and stop it over here. And yes, I want to close it. It says successfully stop the web app, and on refreshing it, you see that the site will not work. Okay, it might take some time to recognize that. Yes, you see application error, and that is because we have purposely closed the site. You have stopped the web app. So that was all about it. I hope I have given you, a very good understanding of full stack data science and MLOps. And with this use case, SMS spam detection using machine learning model deployment concludes all our three parts of model deployment. Stay tuned for more interesting videos on other subjects and other subjects and core parts of data of computer science and data science as well. So in computer science, I'll be covering many more topics, and stay tuned for those as well. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, like and share. And if you find my video helpful, do leave a comment, and I welcome your feedback as well. Thank you.